Good morning. This is Val Campbell and Brad Krantz. How you doing this morning, Brad?
Hey, doing great. Glad to be here.
Now, Brad and I have been cheating. We've been sitting here for a couple minutes talking and kind of coordinating our thoughts. So we are here at the Saturday morning show, and we were just talking about the state of affairs in the world and some of the craziness. And I'm sure that everybody out there is kind of like us. It's sometimes you look around and you shake your head. And I'm looking outside my window here, and it's a beautiful sunny day in Seattle. Everything's peaceful and calm. And if I had the door open right now, the fresh air would be blowing through here. And yet, just a few miles from here in Seattle, we had warnings to stay out of the city because of the riots, and they're expecting a lot of buildings and things to be destroyed and burned, and business owners are panicking, trying to figure out how to protect their property. So it does seems like a weird world, doesn't it, Brad?
It is. It's different than it was last year. Who would have envisioned this or seen where we'd be? And I just think the political and the economic strife created. And I think we're seeing a country more divided. And I think that the media and politicians and certain special interest groups are leading the charge, and we're being manipulated to it's creating havoc with people's lives, with businesses. I've never seen so much division in my time. In 60 years old, I'll be 60 tomorrow. I've never seen so much division. I think it surpasses the riots of the 60s. Somebody's trying to make a comparison, because that was all about the Vietnam War for the most part. That was not on special interest groups, and I have nothing against Black lives do matter, guys. All lives matter. God created all men in his image, Imago Dei. All men matter. But that group, and as much as that intent maybe there's been co-opted by political extremists, Marxist, and I'll just say it's a terrorist organization now. It is not we had the Weatherman Underground back in the 60s. That was an extreme faction of the protesters, but that wasn't the bulk of the protesters. It was anti-war, Vietnam War protester, which was senseless in retrospect. So
Marxist terrorists have learned a lot in the last 60 years. And one of the things that they learned is that you can't name your organization the Black Panthers or Weather Underground or what's one of the other ones. I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but anyway, now you're going to name them People for the Love of Puppy Dogs or something like that. Well, who's not in favor of loving puppy dogs? I mean, that's hard to argue against these things. It's hard to get a hold of this and surround it. But if you go look at BLM, just as a for instance, that's actually not even our subject today, but we're in it anyway. But if you go actually look at their website and read what they say there, and it clearly states that they are a Marxist organization that is committed to disrupting the nuclear family and creating a socialist government, a socialist world where parenting is taken away from the parents and given to the community. And this is there's so many directions you and I could go on that one, isn't there, Brad? I mean,
I'm going to say this. Back in the mid 80s, to familiarize myself, I read Lenin's What Is to Be Done. I read Trotsky's The Revolution Betrayed. I know what these guys think. I know what they're all about. And there's two things. Lenin was a political terrorist. He was all about terror. Look at not the gulags, but the secret police that Lenin really put into full effect, and Stalin took it about 10 steps further. They're not about peace. They're not about creating a democratic environment or workers' rights. It's all about consolidating power. And it's a misnomer. And Marxism has never worked where it's been practiced. It's maybe, quote, sounds great in theory. That might even be it's going too far, but it doesn't work in practice, because you end up having an elite terrorist group in charge, people, and hear this, and they're the people that have the power. They're the people that have the money. They're the people that have control. Though it's not about workers' rights. It's not about the average person. That's not what communism is truly about. So let's just be clear about that.
And it is. There's just a lot of strangeness going on, and I think and people I believe are starting to see some of this. That what started as an idea of peaceful protest very, very quickly turned into military terrorist organizations. And I told Brad I was just watching a video that was it was actually from the police, and the police captain was describing, police whatever authority was describing from these videos the military precision of how this group of several thousand people marched into the city, and how it was very carefully coordinated. And if many of you are in the military, you know how you've got the leading front, you have people on the front, and you're supplying them from the rear, and you've got side protection, and the way that they put these banners up, these banners were 5 or 6 feet tall so that they were protected, and they were using umbrellas overhead just as you would shields so that nobody could take their pictures. They couldn't identify them. They were all in black with black hoods. This group of several hundred people that were the attack unit, but the rest of the crowd, probably 1,500 to 2,000 people, I would guess, were supplying them with weapons and things from the rear, and bicycles. They were bringing bicycles in and putting them on the edges so that nobody could get into the group. And the military precision of this was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously, this was not a peaceful protest. It was an anarchy, battle in the streets.
Yeah.
But what we're really here to talk about today, and we really got off on that one because it is a hot subject. It's something, but
you can't get around it. It's happening all over the country and all over the world still.
I did a video a couple days ago where I talked about the fact that we've kind of created our own little Jurassic Park here with the unexpected consequences of what we've done with this virus, and it's the fact that it's killing, projected to kill, 130 million plus people globally. These lockdowns. I have very, very, very dear friends and family from me overseas that are contacting me, telling me they're out of food. There's no food in the city. What are we going to do? This type of thing. So the supply chains are locked down, and we've been insulated here, Brad.
Oh, absolutely.
It's coming. I had my good buddy from Bremerton called me the other night, and he said, "Are you having any trouble getting building materials?" And I said, "Well, no, not really." And he said, "I was just at the yard. I was at the lumber yard, and everything was bare." And he said they're just having trouble getting material because the mills aren't producing as much because of all of the lockdowns and all this type of stuff. He sent me pictures. I've never seen anything like it. It was literally, if you can imagine a Home Depot with all those big high bay shelves, they were stripped clean. There was like 1 or 2 big beams in there, and everything else was empty. And he said, I've never seen anything like it. And we just heard a couple of days ago, I don't know if you picked up on this, apparently in the state of Washington, the unemployment funds ran out in May, and they've got people that never have received their unemployment yet because there's a lag. So now the government's forcing people to close down, and there's no support. So I think we've been insulated here, but it's coming. If they keep this up, that kind of thing is coming, and I just don't know where the population is going to go with that. What do you think?
Well, there are some scary scenarios. I don't spend my day or a lot of my time delving into this. I'm frustrated with our elected officials, and shame on them from what they've been doing and calling this democracy. It's not. This is a orchestrated shutdown. It's gone far beyond what in my opinion, I'm 60 years old. What do I know? I've been around, but this is way beyond what's needed, and I don't think the facts and the numbers bear out what the draconian measures that are being taken to try to create this. But yeah, we're insulated here in America. I have helped out a couple, 3 people in other countries that, when they tell me, "Hey, Brad, I haven't had any food for 2 days," and I go, "I'm sitting here with Adam and Ashley, we're eating gourmet food," and I'm going, "Gosh, what do you need? What can I help you out with, man?"
I know
we don't have food, the basic necessities, and we don't get that here. But there is something wrong that I think, Val, you've talked about this in depth, and I agree with you that people have been, I almost want to say we're being led like sheep to a slaughter because we're doing the government. And guys, I'm old enough to know the government is not always right in what they tell. In fact, I think they're wrong far more times than we're right. And we've got to pay attention to this. We have to be discerning to discern truth from error, fact from fiction. And I think we've been spoon-fed a lot of fiction, or shoveled a lot of fiction by our government officials and the media too. If you watch the media, they just keep hyping the number of cases, but I keep going, tell me the number of deaths. Let's put this in statistical perspective. Val, you've done a lot more on this than I have, but again, we said from the beginning, this is borne out to be true. And I'm going to tell my quick story here. Is the numbers have never added up for a true pandemic, and for the actual deaths. If they were saying this is as severe it's supposed to be, I would expect to see hundreds of thousands, if not millions of more deaths, and I'm not seeing it. No. But here's the hypocrisy and the truth versus fiction. I took a trip to Omaha, Nebraska last week to visit some business partners and friends. I took a flight from Seattle to Dallas on an Airbus A321. Seats about 170 to 200 passengers, fully loaded flight, 3 seats abreast to Dallas, 3.5-hour flight. Put masks on, but we're seated 3 abreast, the whole plane. Now tell me,
shoulder, right?
Yeah, what happened to social distancing? Does that matter? Because we keep talking about it. Go to Fred Meyer, or go to some of these other stores. Keep yourself 6 feet apart. And I could use a word, I'm not going to use it, but why the heck can you put people 3 abreast in a plane and that's okay? I don't freaking get it. And on the way back from Omaha through Denver, 737, same thing, 3 seats abreast, full loaded plane, masks on. Where is the social distancing, people? Does that matter? Because we're being told you got to wear masks, you got to social distance. And then the other question comes up, because my partner, good friend there, Adam Reek, said, yeah, they want to shut down and we won't allow, like in their case, Nebraska Cornhuskers game. Why can you sit on an airplane with 200 people, 3 abreast, less than 6 inches apart, but you couldn't go to a football game and wear masks? That is mindless, in my opinion. Val.
It doesn't really make any sense. And I've made videos on this. I think maybe you have, but one of the videos that I made this week, I was explaining that if you think about the history of the world, and I suggest people to get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and go sit down for 10 minutes where it's nice and quiet and think about the history of the world, you are going to come up with a really, really hard time finding things that governments have done correctly. And somebody would say, well, they did this. I said, well, yeah, but that was correcting this other mistake they did over here. Yeah. So you can't shoot yourself in the foot and say, well, I went to the doctor, so I did good. I mean, that doesn't, it doesn't work like that. So
governments don't exist for the benevolence of people. They tell you they do, but they are on their own self-interest. This is being very clear to me through this whole situation that it's not about the people. Our state governor seems to care less about the citizens of Washington and what he's doing. The mayor of Seattle doesn't seem to give a rip about the people of Seattle. I mean, it's just they don't care.
They have a political agenda. In fact, there's a city council member that came out this week.
Yeah, and
city council member that came out this week. Sorry, I stepped.
That's okay.
City council member came out this week that said that she's encouraging them to continue to riot until we've overthrown the communist or the capitalist system and replaced it with socialism. So we actually have people in government who are sworn to uphold the Constitution as elected officials, and yet they are openly advocating and violating the law in what they're doing. So, and yet they remain, and not only that, they get reelected. So
let me just say this, Kashama Sawant, if you hate the U.S. and Seattle as much as you do, please go find another country that suits you. Okay, you don't have to stay here in America. If it's that bad, why don't you go find a country? Maybe communist China, maybe Russia would be more suited to you. But apparently the U.S., which, by the way, gives you the right to say what you do and to cause the disruption in that you do. If you don't like the U.S. or Seattle, move to another country that would suit you.
Here's the thing, and this is a hard pill to swallow, but these people make a lot of money off of preaching socialism and all this. They are charismatic opportunists on every side. Politicians are charismatic opportunists, and they make a lot of money by selling influence. And part of that influence is that they can direct tax money, which is billions of dollars, and they can decide where it goes. And so people pay them to influence that. they pay them to set up laws and policies that will benefit them,
So
somebody else.
they bribe them, Val?
Yeah, they actually do.
Would a good socialist or somebody actually allow themselves to be bribed?
Well, how many houses does Bro Bernie have?
Yeah, I'm shocked. Well, he made 1.5 million the other year, most of it on the royalties from his book. I think that's a capital idea.
Well,
But,
and who was it? Here you go. Who was it that bought most of his books? His campaign. And so he took campaign funds, laundered them through his book sales right into his pocket, completely legal. I mean, they write the rules, folks. We're just supporting it.
Capitalists are evil and cruel and ruthless, but socialists, political people like that, they're not upright. They're not honest. They're not truthful. And we got to get over this, that this is being done for some altruistic person. I'd like to audit Kashama Sawant's income and see where she's getting money from.
I don't know. So really what we wanted to talk about today was health and wellness, and let's just call it alternative and real life solutions to everything we're being presented. And I would like to start this by telling my story.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that most people have heard that, but I watched my father die from various symptoms. He died from the symptoms, but they never really identified with him the disease. And that's very common, right? People die from the symptoms and without identifying the disease. Obviously, they die from the disease, but they're trying to treat symptoms. They're trying to treat symptoms, but the disease they don't get. And so at 54, he died of a heart attack while he was on business. And it really colored a lot of my life and the way I looked at things. Is I just thought, well, I'm probably going to die so young, But when I was in my mid 40s, I started having similar symptoms to what I saw my father having. And so I thought there's got to be a solution to this. I mean, in that period of time of 30 years, almost 25 years, certainly we've advanced. So I started going to medical clinics, and you know what they did? They would go in, they'd take my blood pressure, they'd take my temperature, they'd weigh me, and they'd go to a chart and they'd go, okay, we're going to put you on this drug and this drug. The drugs they were putting me on were causing more side effect problems than what I was experiencing. But I got to a point where it was so bad that I literally couldn't walk downstairs in my house, get something, and walk back up without having to sit down and rest for 20 minutes. It was that bad. I would go onto a job site as a building contractor. I would walk down a driveway. I had to rest before I could walk back up the driveway. And it was obviously severe, but by this time I'd gone to 3 different clinics. They weigh me, they take my temperature, they take my blood pressure. Oh, here's some new pills that are out now. And none of this was working. I finally, on the 3rd one, I ended up at an internist who was a really, really good doctor. He was a lecturer at a local university. And by this time I had a stack of health and wellness magazines that I had bookmarked and underlined and highlighted, and I took them into this appointment. It was probably about the 3rd appointment I'd had with this guy, and he was really good. And I sat down, I started going through. I said, what about this? What's this situation? What about this? And after a couple of minutes, the guy says, no. He says, wait. He said, look, he says, I got to tell you something. Doctors don't know anything about that stuff, really. They really don't. In fact, we don't take any schooling on that. We're not licensed to even be able to talk to you about that. He said, this was the first thing he told me that was shocking. I literally, why it was, I don't know, but I was shocked. He said, the health and wellness industry is 20 years ahead of standardized medicine in understanding how to keep people healthy. And I thought, wow. And he said to me, second thing he said was, doctors are really good at diagnosing illness and treating it with drugs and surgery, but that's really all we do. We try and sort of give you a few guidelines and weigh you and some things like that. But he said, we literally are prevented by law from even talking to you about, vitamins and that type of thing, diet and that. You have to go to a registered dietitian. So you got this control process, right? And that was pretty shocking to me. But the second thing that I learned there that I would like to share is he actually told me, he said, not only that, but as a doctor, if I prescribe something for you that is the best course of action, but it's not what the insurance company dictates, and the drug companies and the insurance companies are tied together. And he said, if it's not what the insurance company protocol is, they fine me. He said, I just got fined $5,000 by my insurance company for prescribing something for my patient. It was the best thing for that patient to do, but it didn't fit the standardized protocol for the insurance company. So they penalized me $5,000, and I've filed a class action lawsuit against that major insurance company. You would all know who it is, because they are preventing doctors from optimizing people's health. And that was when it started to click into me that we are being managed to a standard by an industry. And the industry is a conglomerate of the Food and Drug Administration, the drug companies, and the insurance companies. And this sounds like a tinfoil hat conspiracy thing, but it's not. This is just a business process that got started, and there's so much money involved in it that they start influencing the politics and the FDA and how that all comes about. There's a point to this. Brad and I are going to talk about this, but then we're going to talk about this COVID situation and the things we should actually be doing that we're really not. So I ended up going, and I just by almost accident, I had the radio on one day. I heard about another clinic. I've talked to you about this, Brad. And this guy was describing everything that that was wrong with me on the radio. And I went to one of his seminars. I went, and everything he said, it was like, wow. And I went up afterwards. I said, you must have a camera in my house. He laughs. He says, no, it's just so common. I said, I can talk about this. Just every man, and goes through this stuff. And I described to him what I was doing. He says, oh yeah, we can fix that easy. And I said, what do you mean you can fix it easy? I've been battling this for years. He says, yeah, but they don't know what to look for. And he's an MD. This is an MD who had opted out of the system. He said, they don't know what to look for, or they're prevented from actually doing the right thing because they're locked into managing you for the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And I went, wow. And so I did some blood tests. He gave me some supplements and some special compounded pharmaceuticals to take. And 6 months later, I'm on a bicycle team riding up mountain passes in Canada. And you've probably heard some of that story. But that was my introduction into the difference between not being sick and actually being healthy, because there's a difference. So Brad, I know you've got a story too. Would you share that? And then we can talk about
Well, let me preface it by this. I think, we're here, we're business partners. That's really honest what leads us to do this. But I think there's an analogy I can draw, and I will, between our own financial well-being versus business or whatever, and our personal well-being. We need to take personal responsibility for finances, not up to the government. It's not up to elected politicians, et cetera, et cetera. But the same thing in the health arena. There, you need to, at a certain point, and I'd say to a large degree, take responsibility for your own health. So let me tell you in maybe 5 minutes or less what I mean by that. I was diagnosed in January of 2018 with cancer, prostate cancer, through a series of, and thank goodness for medical, but I think you need to take a balance between the traditional medical approach and a naturopathic approach. And that's what I did. And I'll tell you why. Thank goodness I had the doctor, because I had a prostate biopsy. I had a bone biopsy. I had 4 bone and CT scans. I had TERP surgery. So thank goodness for doctors that are capable of doing that type of stuff, but not one of those really focused on my nutritional health or how to keep my body healthy. So we went out and sought a naturopathic. It's Northwest Nature Health Ballard. They've got a couple locations. They specialize in naturopathic treatment of cancer. And I did a lot of my own research, because I'm the kind of guy, I will say the biggest thing, I just told somebody earlier this today, that I learned by going to college to get my degree in business was how to learn. So I'm a pretty good learner when I want to, but I did enough reading to understand that what we eat, and in particular sugar, feeds cancer cells just as much as let's say a drug addict, a heroin addict feeds off their drug, heroin. Sugar feeds cancer. So guess what you need to keep cut out of your diet? Sugar. So the naturopath that we met with initially went through my diet for my morning, breakfast, lunch, dinner, recommend some, at the time, seemed like radical changes. I kind of kid people saying, I kind of thought, well, I'm not going to die of cancer. I'm going to die of starvation. But it's amazing when you start taking, and I knew I needed to take a certain portion of my health into my own hands because my medical doctors weren't talking anything about my diet. Okay. But diet's very important. It's very important to our overall health regardless, but especially when you get in cancer, if your doctor and most oncologists, and I'll just say I'll state this as my opinion, they tell you can eat whatever you want, and that is so wrong. Now I see a DACNB, he's a diplomat of the certified American, nutritional board. The guy's a certified board nutritionist. So your diet is really, really important when it comes to dealing with cancer. And you've got to take the personal responsibility. So somebody has cancer and the doctor says, take these drugs, because now as a result of the drugs that I'm on to treat my cancer, I get Lupron injections every 3 months. I'm on prednisone. I'm on a heart medication because now I have high blood pressure due to the medications I'm on for cancer. I'm taking adaptogenic herbs now for depression related to the prednisone I'm on. Also, I've had some weight gain that I can't get off right away because of the medications my doctor put me on to treat me for the cancer. So Val, as you said, every medication is going to have some side effects, maybe good, maybe bad. But I elected, with the depression that I've been dealing with for probably the last maybe 6 months or so, is I elected to go see my board certified nutritionist, and he was telling me about various things. He goes, you can go see your doctor. And I just said, no, I'm here to see you. Because so I go see my doctor. Guess what, Val? He's going to put me on another medication, and I'm going to have 3 or more side effects. I've already got enough side effects from the medications I'm on. So I've been on an adaptogenic herb, adaptocrine, and it seemed to work pretty well. So my point is, in all this, guys, I think number one, we have to learn it's not everybody will do this. I get it. Do your homework, but you need to take, I also exercise about 5 to 6 days a week, because that is a good thing. So I've managed my diet. I've changed my diet. I stay away from a lot of the high sugar stuff. And I don't think eating a worse diet than the majority of people, but it was amazing when we started looking at how many of the foods I was eating had sugar in them, or if they've got carbohydrates, those convert to sugar. Milk, lactose is a sugar. I've never been a big milk drinker, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's amazing the number of foods have sugar in them, and our American diet is chock full. It's overloaded with sugar. So if you've got cancer and you don't look at your diet or manage it or make changes, you're actually feeding your cancer because of the amount of sugar you're putting in your diet. So I'm going to say you're going to probably counteract the medical treatment. But again, there is a naturopathic side, like you found out, Val, that's very valid, very legitimate. It's been there, but again, there's not a lot of money in it, because what I found out through my reading, and I did a fair amount of reading on the metabolic approach to cancer, all this type of stuff. Diet will work for you, but guess what? It takes discipline. So if I could, Val, you need to radically change your diet, or here's a pill you can take. What do you do? Okay, I'll take that pill. But there's no money in a diet for the medical profession either. So it's been set by the wayside as a legitimate form of treatment. Yet I'm going to say it again, your diet radically impacts your overall health. Depending on specific conditions you have, and I'm not here to diagnose or prescribe, but you really need to take a look at your diet if you are facing a medical condition, because your diet can have substantial impact on that. So you need to have a balance between a naturopathic approach and a medical approach. Hey, if I need to go and have heart surgery or get my tonsils removed or something, I don't want to go see a naturopath. I want to go see a doctor that can do that. But my oncologist, interesting enough, when I started meeting him, nice young guy, great guy, he was a Christian. When you have to show them all the different supplements and stuff you're taking, because they need to make sure that none of those are going to, adversely impact or lessen the effects of the oral oncology that I need to take. he couldn't believe it. He didn't understand. He thought I'm just spending all this money. And his question he asked me is, why are you taking all this? I go, because it's to keep my body healthy. Because guess what? When you start going through radiation, which I went through, I didn't go through chemo, which I watched my sister's body get ravaged. And my sister called it, she'd end up dying of colon cancer not colon cancer. Yeah, colon cancer. 2 years ago, she called it medically authorized poison. Guys, it is. It lowers your body's immunity to fight diseases. And I'm at the point now with my treatment stage that if I had to go through chemo, I would not do it. I would pursue a naturopathic approach. I'd rather have a quality of lifestyle than to have my body ravaged by it. But those treatments wreak havoc on your body. So how do you keep your body's health up to counteract that? And that's where I was at when I was faced with my options. I said, I need to do something here to get my body's health built up. And that's why we saw a naturopath, why I started, changing my diet, upping some of my supplementation, because medical treatments, whether it's radiation, which I had for 4 months, guys, I went through it, chemotherapy, those will ravage your body to a certain extent, and you need to have a healthy body to withstand it. Chemo basically, I will say, kind of helped kill my sister off. It really did. It was sad.
Well, the chemo route kills the cancer, but it kills everything. It just kills everything.
Well, in my initial study of this too, the original treatment of chemo was on late stage cancer patients. But what was both interesting and sad about that, in a lot of cases, it wasn't the cancer that killed him. It was the chemo treatment, because it's barbaric, guys. That doesn't have to be your opinion. I'm not a medical doctor, but as somebody that has stage 4 cancer, I would not go through chemo. I would refuse it. My wife knows that. I'm not a proponent of it. To me, it's like, that's barbaric in the 21st century, that's the best that medicine can offer. So seek alternative treatments, seek naturopathic, seek a clinical nutritionist. Val, somebody you saw. Sometimes it's pretty simple changes you can make, but they'll have a profound effect on keeping your overall body health where it needs to be. Because if your body's worn down and beat down and you start going through some of these treatments, your body just can't withstand them.
And Brad and I are telling our stories, but I've got a family member that went into the hospital. She was having some problems, and they told her, this was a Sunday, I actually took her in. They told her if she hadn't come in that day, she would have been dead by Tuesday from a very, very aggressive cancer. She was perfectly fine on Wednesday the week before. Friday and Saturday started having some bruising, goes to the hospital Sunday. She could hardly move. They said, if you hadn't come in today, you'd have been dead by Tuesday. And so, there are differences, and people need to make their decisions. And we're just telling our story.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you another quick piece on how this journey started for me. Was many years ago, I happened to read something and then subsequently saw a guy named Jay Cordage. I don't know if you ever heard of Jay Cordage. They call him the Juice Man. And he was at a fair, home show or something. And I kind of got to know this guy a little bit. And it was pretty remarkable. He was real big on juicing, and he was taught by a guy named Norman Walker, who also is another famous guy, Jack LaLanne. A lot of people have heard of Jack LaLanne when we were kids. This was a popular exercise show guy. And I had the coincidence of meeting several people that were friends, and all of these people that I met were like in their 80s, and they were still having kids, stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy. They were healthy. They looked like they were 45 or 50 years old. And you talk to them, and they'd say, well, how old do you think I am? I'd say, well, I don't know, maybe 50. And go, no, I'm 85. I mean, it's bizarre, literally. And it was kind of shocking. So that was kind of my first introduction to nutrition. And do I follow all this a lot? No, probably, I'm like everybody else. I get caught up in my habits and my routines, but I keep my supplementation. I keep coming back because of these experiences I've had. So let's talk for just a second about COVID-19. Okay. What is this? How does it kill people? Because I hear so much misinformation out there. It's all this stuff being thrown around. So first off, I want to let everybody know that we have been battling viruses since we arrived on this planet, by whatever means anybody wants to describe that. It's a long time. And our bodies are amazingly well designed and suited to combat viruses because there are more than a quadrillion viruses on Earth. They are the most numerous biological agents. And that's, for you freaks that want to know this, that's 1 followed by 30 zeros. That's how many viruses. You can't breathe without ingesting viruses. They're everywhere. They're microscopic. They float around. And these are viruses that have to do with plants and all kinds of things. And not all viruses are pathological. Okay? Excuse me. I don't know what all they do, but they're all over the place. And our bodies deal with them, neutralize them, eliminate them. But occasionally, there will be a virus that incites a response in our body. Now, it's important to understand, let's take COVID-19. First, it would be completely inappropriate for somebody to say, well, you know, this and this and such about COVID-19 because we know about Ebola and we know about HIV. They might be viruses, but they have no more in common than a grizzly bear and a field mouse do because they're both mammals. Okay, so you can't draw those kinds of comparisons. That's scientifically inappropriate. Okay, so the thing about COVID-19 or any of the coronaviruses is they are respiratory infections, right? They get in, and you don't actually die from the virus. You die from your immune system's response to the virus. And this is because some people have weakened immune systems for whatever reason, or they are overloaded virally. They're nurses or whatever, and they're in an environment and they're being taught to use these PPEs incorrectly. The masks and things are not used correctly by nurses. Sorry, nurses, but I know about masks, and I hear what the nurses say, and I'm just shaking my head and say, this is what they're told, so this is what they do, but it's wrong in many cases in relationship to viruses. So what happens is the COVID-19 gets in your system and it starts attacking your cells, and it creates a response, a messaging response in your body where your cells are screaming that they're under attack. Now, with some other kind of a virus, with a cold, for instance, they might just be saying, "Hey, I'm under attack. Come give me a hand." Something about I'm using lay language here, obviously. It's called a cytokine storm. These cytokines are communication molecules that are kind of like hormones, and they tell the other cells around them, "Hey, I'm under attack." Well, COVID-19 creates this massive cytokine storm, and your immune system just goes crazy. And your immune system, the response of your immune system to this is actually takes over and becomes more of a problem. Okay? And most people don't know that by the time you go to the hospital, you're probably pretty much done battling with the virus. If you're that sick, you've beat the virus. Now you're battling your immune system. So we know a couple of things. Are you still with me, Brad?
I'm here.
Please sleep. First off, the thing we know is that viruses have a life cycle. Almost always viruses have a life cycle, and especially respiratory viruses. In the summertime, because of the temperatures, northern hemisphere, temperatures increase. People are out getting more vitamin D. Vitamin D is very important for battling this stuff. It's an immune system support. All of these things contribute, and this is the way the world and our biology have been designed or evolved to battle these viruses. We beat them in the summertime. There's a cycle. So one of the issues here, and Brad and I were just kind of laughing about this, is that the drug makers now, the vaccine makers, are now coming out and starting to say, gee, we're seeing the numbers come down so far that we know what the cycle is. We know we project ahead. This virus is pretty much going to be a dead issue a couple of months from now. We probably aren't even going to be able to come out with a vaccine because there's not going to be enough sick people to run a proper trial on it. Now, that's kind of interesting in itself. There are different kinds of vaccines. We're not here to discuss the whole thing, but the point is everybody's destroying the world waiting for a vaccine, right? So that's kind of crazy. The other thing that we know about this for a fact, there are effective treatments. There have been since very early on, but the use of those treatments has been suppressed by this very same industry and by political pressure that you and I just discussed, Brad. There's the malaria cocktail that has been used extremely effectively. There are corticosteroids that are being used extremely effectively, to the point where there are doctors who have used this a lot who say there's almost a 100% success rate of treating patients if they can get to them before they're basically dead. Sorry, but if the people come in and even if they're pretty sick, if they put them on these protocols right away and start using the right kind of steroids to suppress this cytokine response, they can fix this within about a week. And yet the world is running around going in every wrong direction, right?
And probably at least till after our election here in the U.S. Unfortunately, that's what I'm projecting.
Cynical person, you're cynical.
So, Val, let me. I'm gonna make a statement. And I'm gonna pose a question off that, because that's just kind of the guy I am. I'm a thinker. I keep telling my wife she hates when I make comments about TV and stuff. I say I can't listen to stupid statements or something without saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, no, no, I don't agree with that. Let's talk about it," because that's how you learn it. TV, what TV does when you just watch it, I mean, you just turn mindlessly. You don't get a chance to think or talk about it. So stupid stuff goes right by and you just take it and you subverse. I'm the guy, whoa, hang on, hit the pause button. Let's talk about it. My chiropractor, great chiropractor, they're into natural health. His son is my is my clinical nutritionist. He has told me from day one, get your immune system up. That'll take care of it. Get your immune system up. Okay. And I think he's 100% right. So this leads to my question. And I want you to think about this and ask yourself this. And I'm going to say it twice. How come our government and media is not taking any time to tell people or talk to people about how to get your immune system up? Let me repeat that. How come our government and our media is not telling us anything about how to get our immune system up? That is a great question, I think. I think it's a pertinent question. They're telling us what the problem is and how seemingly it's so bad and everybody in the world is going to die. And if you don't wear your mask and social distance, yada, yada, yada. How come we're not getting any positive information about here's how you can prevent yourself from being affected? Here's how you can build your immune system up. I don't know, Val, am I just the only weird person?
No, you're 100% correct. And I am the same way. I tend to, I hear somebody say something and I say, well, who says? What, yeah. That's right. Or why? Why? What is that? And one of the questions that I started asking myself right away because I want to go through, I want to see the data. And I have a few things that I'm really good at. And like you, I'm really good at investigating things and asking questions. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to see the raw data. I don't want to see what somebody else filtered through this for me. Mm-hmm. And what their politically or economically or financially agenda-inspired statement was about it. I want to see what the data is, because something that I know from my business experience is that numbers are valuable in ratios. But raw data, when somebody says, oh, there's 50 million people infected, I say, okay, so what? I want to know how many people died from the infection. You tell me 50 million people are infected and one died, and I'm saying, well, okay, I don't think I'm going to shut down the world. Just an example, folks, Yep. But everybody's running around, screaming about one part of the ratio. So when I started looking at this and I started peeling that onion back, what I found out was, on the bottom line, first off, is that if someone becomes infected, which is currently only running about 9%, I mean, you watch the tests, right? They came out first saying 98% of the people are infected. And then somebody questioned that, said, it doesn't sound right to me, right? But they're putting this out there in the media. And then they came back and looked as, Sorry, we missed a decimal point. It's only 9.8%.
Val, let me interject a point here.
Go ahead.
Statistics class in college, 1979. I didn't learn a lot, but I remember this statement. It's very profound. So I did learn one thing out of it. Statistics don't lie, but liars use statistics.
And you have to learn to question these things. But this literally, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but if you go back and you look at the last couple of weeks, they're talking about, wait a minute, how come all of these tests done at the clinic, they were all 100%, 100% infected. And then they got to look at it and say, oh yeah, sorry, we made a mistake. We didn't take into account the people that weren't positive. It's like, you serious? You're only looking at one side of the number. Okay. So that's an important thing about this. But what we find is, when we peel this back, is that far less than 1% of the people who even get infected die from this. And
I don't know anybody that's died, Val. Do you? I mean,
I know people who know people.
Yeah, I do too. But I kept asking the question, where are these people that have died? Because I don't know any of them.
So let's go to a statement that you made. It's like, wait a minute. In 1918, when 5% of the world's population died from everybody knew somebody that died. I mean, there wasn't a family that didn't have somebody that died.
Right.
And now we've got a situation where you actually have to go on social media and say, does anybody know anybody that died? And somebody will pop in and go, well, I know somebody that knows somebody, and his uncle died. And I got into one of these discussions this week, and this part of what prompted me to bring this up.
Okay.
Was somebody said, well, I said, well, how old was this person? Well, they were in their lower 70s somewhere, but very healthy. And I said, okay, look, let me tell you first off what we know about this disease. Nobody who's very healthy dies from this disease. In fact, almost everybody who's very healthy, if they even get the virus, they don't even know it. You've got to take a test to find out if you've been exposed to it.
Yeah.
And what I find is that people look at some other person, and this person is 70 or 80 years old, or they might be 40 years old, and they'll say, well, I knew a nurse, or I knew somebody that was 40 years old, and he died of this, and he was healthy. Look, you don't know what underlying situations that are there. And I'm sorry for that. But we know for a fact, don't we, that people start losing hormone levels at around 40 years old, women and men. This can be a big effect on your immune system. This is an immune system disease. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we don't focus enough on our immune system. Right now, the world is running around wearing these foolish masks. The masks do nothing. There's unlimited amounts of scientific data proving that these masks don't do anything, right?
My hand is making a big difference. I'm saving thousands of lives by having my hand over my face.
But
sorry, guys.
The truth of the matter is that this is a microscopic element that can be aerosolized very easily. Every time you talk, you are expelling millions of viruses in aerosolized medium. And that aerosolized medium hangs in the air from 8 to 14 minutes in a dead air environment. We're not talking about your house that has air currents. We're definitely not talking about a store where people are moving around. Go ahead.
So, Val, how can you get on an Airbus A321 with, let's say, 200 people on it wearing masks? And that's not I wasn't worried about it. I'll be honest. I wasn't worried. But with masks on, no social distancing, and the airlines are getting money from the government. I haven't quite figured out why that's okay, but again, this just doesn't make sense. You can fly in an airplane full of people right next to each other, but you can't go do this. You can't go to a football or baseball game and all this. And we're back to think about it. Does this really make, there's an inconsistent application to the quote unquote rules about this or protocol that it just, I'm left scratching my head going, this just doesn't, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. And I'm not saying that just to be sound cocky, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I know that you know the answer to your question. It was a rhetorical question.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and put the answer out here right now. And it was best framed up in a video that I caught this week, and I thought it was really brilliantly done. It was by an epidemiologist who'd been studying influenza for 40 years. Okay.
They can't know anything, Val. They can absolutely not know anything, can they?
40 years this guy had been studying epidemiology. Yeah, you're right. And he's talking about masks, and he says, look, here's the deal. I'm paraphrasing, right? This is I'm filtering in, but I got this right, okay? Mm-hmm. He says, here's the deal. There's two conversations here. One is a scientific conversation, okay? There's no reason to wear the mask. The other reason is because it makes people feel like they're able to do something. They're giving them some control over an event that they feel helpless against. And it gives them something to do. He said, all this cleaning the surfaces and everything, this is what the guy says. He says, yeah, that doesn't do anything because that's a minimal part of the transmission equation here, but it gives people something to do. So all of this mask and cleaning and social distancing is only about making people feel good, and they're doing this for the purposes of attracting you to them so that you're thinking, oh my God, this person makes me feel safe. I'm going to vote for them. And
they're mandating this stuff, Val. They just, that's Minnesota and some other state mandates masks. I know in Lincoln, Nebraska this week, as of Monday, they were mandating masks. So a lot of people, and still California's rolled back their, exit out. Washington has done the same.
But no surprise. You know something, Brad? Americans are weird. Did you know that? Americans are weird.
I know I am. So.
Americans are weird. Yeah, compared to the world. Americans, we are virtually one of the only nations that doesn't just lockstep fall into place when people tell them what to do. We have a culture of suspicion of government. Other countries don't do this. People do, the government tells them to do something, they just do it. And if they starve, they starve. It's just the way it is. We are rebellious by culture and nature. And probably genetics, because we come from a rebellious people. Not all of us, but this is part of the gambit that they are betting that more people will feel comforted by being told what to do, and that they will feel like this person took a strong response. Might have been wrong, but this person took a strong response to this pathogen, that this danger that we felt. So I feel comforted. But what's the real solution here? What is the solution? Because we know that the vaccine might not ever get here, and if it got here, it might not be effective. And if they rush this thing through, we might have horrible side effects. Secondly, the masks and stuff like that aren't really going to make any difference. If it was any difference, there's no place in the world that wears more masks than China, and where'd this thing come from? I mean, the whole thing, these are anecdotal, but it's still there. So now we've locked down the schools, and we're talking about, we were trying to decide if the kids even go back to school, except there's been literally less than 40 children of school age that have died from this from day one, and they were all sick kids. And there's absolutely not one, all the studies done all over the world, not one incidence of a child transmitting this to an adult. There's something about this virus in children, it just doesn't, on a whole, affect them in the same way. Okay, so all of this is crazy, but what really started bugging me, and we've gone a long way here to kind of get to this point. Nobody was talking about health. Nobody's talking about, why aren't we focused on nutrition and supplementation and getting some exercise, getting our butts out of the house and opening up our shirts and getting some vitamin D.
I've heard zero health solutions by anybody in government or media. And I will just say, somebody takes responsibility for it, and I do. That's shameful, guys. We should be asking questions. Why are we getting slammed with all the negative and panic-fueled rhetoric, and nobody's telling us, hey, guys, here's how you can minimize it in your health. Here's 10 health tips you can do. You can start right today to help get your body healthier. Here's things you can do. We're hearing none of that, guys, and That bothers me big time.
But that was what was driving me crazy, and why I started talking about this. It is because there are so many things that you can do, but the part of the problem is they're ignorant. The second part of it is that the media works for corporations that are being paid by drug companies for advertising. They don't want you coming out here talking about vitamins and colloidal silver and stuff like that.
And good news doesn't sell either, Val. We got to understand.
That's true. They're competing for ratings. So it's just like clickbait. They come on here and they say 40 million dead. And then you go 40 million dead, click on that and say, yeah, 40 million mosquitoes died from, or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous, but this is the nature of it. But we need to be focusing on our health. Yes, we represent a company that's on the leading edge of supplementation to optimize human health.
Health and wellness products, yes.
And this absolutely is critical. I'm actually pretty excited business-wise moving forward, because if anything's going to come out of this, I believe that there are going to be more and more people focusing on health and wellness. They're going to realize this is not the last virus that's coming along. There's, Fauci, pardon me for swearing, Fauci already said, "Oh, hey, there's a new swine virus, but this ain't over, folks. There's another one coming. We've got episode 2." Right?
He couldn't even throw the first pitch to the pitcher. It went off.
That was horrible, wasn't it? That's probably the worst thing I've ever seen.
Why is he a national hero? I mean, why is that guy a national hero? You get to throw out the pitch. I mean, idiots in charge running this, guys. Anthony Fauci is an idiot. And you guys that think you love him, great with it. Okay, he's an idiot.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something.
Sorry, I'm sorry, but not sorry.
I got it. But let me tell you what the real issue there is. He's actually a brilliant guy in a very narrow field.
Yeah.
Okay. But I really appreciated Rand Paul was questioning him not too long ago and questioning the whole process, everything going on. Rand Paul's a pretty smart guy, and his dad's a father, or his dad's a doctor. And Rand Paul was questioning this concept of locking down a healthy population, which you don't do. You do not quarantine healthy people. You quarantine sick people. This is like epidemiology 101, folks. I know if that's not your background, but you don't quarantine healthy populations. So what he's talking to Fauci about, well, why are we doing this and why are we doing that? This is what Fauci said. You can go look up the video. It's all over the place.
I saw the video. I didn't watch it, but
okay. That's what Fauci said. He said, "Oh, gee, I don't know anything about any of those deals. I can just tell you about viruses." Okay. Well, here's the problem. When you've got somebody who's narrowly experienced, he's a subject matter expert in this little narrow field, then you don't let those people make generalized global policy.
Public proclamations, and that's why I called him an idiot. We're listening to the wrong people making political public proclamations that they have no business.
Right. This is a classic error. Sorry for. I mean, and I'm not a Trump guy. Whatever may come. I do support, most of the things he's done, mostly the fact that he's not a career politician. But in this case, I think that there were better paths that could have been taken. And he tried to do this for a while. And I think he's tried to reverse and he's tried to get Fauci off the stage. But now this pseudoscientist is a celebrity. Okay. He's a celebrity and he's making a ton of money with all these appearances and he's promoting his brand. He goes up there and literally to throw that ball 90 feet, he's 50 feet off in the wrong direction. I mean, it's unbelievably crazy. And everybody says, well, he's not a baseball player. Well, you don't have to be a baseball player to actually go like that.
You try to claim it was his shoulder or something. It's like,
yeah. Well, I saw the whole video of the thing. He practically fell off the mound. He's so clumsy. Yeah. My point being is this is not a well-rounded person. That's my only point. I don't care if he can throw a baseball. This is not a well-rounded person. He should not be making public policy on these things. He can give you input on one little piece of it. Yeah. But this is like having your accounting department set all the policy for your whole company. That's just crazy. You've got sales departments, you've got production departments, you've got marketing departments, you've got different things. That's just one piece of influence, but it ran over the whole world here, didn't it?
He's not my hero. I don't listen to him. Hey, Val, why don't we do this for next week? Because we're going to talk about our products. We should. Let's showcase a handful of products. I'll bring some samples up. Let's actually talk.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you do that?
For health.
Next week you can talk, and I'll try and shut up some.
Yeah, no, it's good. But we'll talk about products that are geared toward health. And one of the reasons that attracted me to Jeunesse was because their product line and seeing the stuff that they did down in Hollywood, there's some solid science and solid people behind these products. I said that fits with where I'm at in my life, and being I don't even want to call it a cancer survivor. I'm dealing with it, but their product line was very much in sync with my philosophy of staying healthy, keeping the body healthy, building up your immune system. So let's talk about
let's do that. Do you want to hunt around and see if you can find some specific subject matter expert that can come in and talk about that? Because I think that would be fun. I tried to do that this week, and I couldn't get my buddy Shelley in time, but.
Would she come on next week?
Possible, but if we're going to talk about specific products, then that's probably not her forte. Anyway, we can talk about that. But I want to, in kind of closing out here, addressing something you just said. With my background, that I've developed a lot of, I don't know if I want to necessarily call it expertise because I'm not that narrow, but a lot of spectrum on what health and nutrition is about. And what the medical industry and the drug industry is about. And I've got a pretty strong biology background. Mm-hmm. What attracted me to Jeunesse from a product standpoint is real simple. Everything about nutrition is about cellular regeneration. Okay? That's the whole point. Feeding the cells and managing our cellular regeneration in a healthy way. And the technology that they have addressed is very, very leading edge when it comes to healthy cellular support.
Yes, big time.
And that was a key. When I looked at that, I said, I feel really, really good about this because everything that I'd learned up to that point in time was being focused like telomeres and all kinds of different genetic and cellular structures and support. Everything was right there. So let's do that next week. We'll give us a chance to prepare a little bit. Anything else you want to add as we kind of close the door here?
I'm going to be a year older when I show up next week. So
you're a lot bolder than I am. I'm a denier. I've been getting younger for the last.
Oh man. Well, yeah. And it's you feel young. Do I feel like I'm 60? No. I mean, sometimes my body does, but mentally, guys, if you hear me speak, I speak with passion. I don't talk about stuff I don't know anything about. Val doesn't either. We're passionate about this stuff. I'm tired of getting lied to. I shouldn't quote the line from the outlaw Josie Wales, but I'm going to, when he's talking and he says, don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining. And that's what our politicians and leaders are doing to us. And that's kind of a crude statement, but that is so applicable in so many situations. I just go, wow, we've got to quit listening to people that are giving us, well, half-truths aren't truth. They're giving us false information, skewed information, political agenda influenced stuff. But again, we're talking about health. If your cells are healthy, guess what? You're going to have a healthy body. So,
and the healthier you are, the more you're going to be able to fight off any kinds of infections.
That's what my chiropractor says. Build up your immunity system that you'd have no problem. And that's right. Where nobody's talking about. So we're going to come back next week, guys. We're going to talk about some of the Jeunesse product line that deals with building up your cellular health, some of the science behind it.
Let's talk about some other things too. There are other non-product kind of things that I think are very valuable also. So let's do both sides, okay?
We'll probably just do 2 or 3 products just to talk a little bit about them, all the ones that I use and why I like them. Okay. We're not going to go through a whole product line here, but I think just to highlight some of the products that I've found that work really well that I love.
And I'll talk to Shelley. I'll talk to Shelley and see, because Shelley's a dear friend of mine, lifelong friend that operates an alternative medical clinic in.
That'd be awesome to get her perspective. It really would.
And she's the one that really turned me on to colloidal silver, just as an example. A lot of people don't even know about that, but it's a really valuable supplement. And there are some others that are just amazing. So we'll talk about some of these things and some of what we've learned, and we're going to do that next week. And for now, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks, Deacon Jerry. You're awesome. You're here all the time. Kathy Clark, love you, dear. Hope you're feeling great. And Jean Janvier from Rwanda is here. Greetings, my brother.
Hey.
And let's see. I usually we see Joni on here, but maybe she slept in. Ems did. Ems sleeping in.
Nope, she's up. She's up.
And Joni. All right. Love you, Joni. Talk to you later.
See you guys. Bye-bye.